Yeah, I'm live for all the world to see. I don't know. I'm gonna give people a few minutes to kind of get in because I realize that the time that you guys have is different than the time that we have. For example, my computer here says 8:22. Up here it says 8:25. I don't know. That's just weird. Apparently, and I've been telling people this. Genesis is down this morning. Yeah, Genesis is down this morning. We can't get into Genesis apparently, unless something changed. Actually, let me check it. I haven't checked it in a while. Genesis. Oh yeah, it's totally down. It's totally down. Great. But anyway, Genesis is down. The network is down for people to log on. I mean, they can log on to their desktops, but they can't access any of their stuff. Me, I can because I don't use a smart board, number one. Number two, I don't keep my files on the desktop. I keep them in the cloud and my email. But that's where we're at. Again, I'll talk about what we're going to be doing today in a few moments. Today is the first official day that I am going to begin a final exam review for you to kind of remind you of those things that you need to know prior to taking your final exam. We'll get that thing done. My goal is to spend some time working through the beginnings of a final exam. I will have a review for you in time because we do have time for that. I'll explain why in a minute. But we will begin the final exam review. I want to refresh and review. Well, not refresh and review. I want to review with you the specific guidelines to which you are going to be graded for this unusual sports project. When I say specific guidelines, I mean like rubric style. I'm going to make that rubric available to you, and I am going to, at some point today, be posting on Google Classroom the assignment that you're going to turn in the unusual sports project with. Obviously, oh, there's a bunch of emojis in there already. Obviously, in the classwork file, there is a check-in, which I do require you to present some information to me in the check-in that is due today at 2 o'clock. But of course, the final product of said unusual sports project will be due next week. Please keep that in mind. As some people have already done, and I appreciate that, thank you so much. Because Genesis is down for the time being, they are asking us to turn in a paper copy of attendance. So I'm going to ask that if you haven't already done so, please make a comment known in the chat so that I can see your name in there. The mood struck me this morning, so I made some hot cocoa. I don't know if you can see that. Hold on. Maybe I can pull the camera down a little. I made some hot cocoa. You can't see it that well. Bring that back up. There we go. Be jealous of my hot cocoa. But yes, leave a comment in the chat so that I can take that paper attendance, and we'll kind of go from there. I'll remind you, of course, before the stream is out. But again, number one, I want to begin reviewing for said final exam. I want to go over the rubric, the detailed rubric with you in regards to what I expect on your project. And then I will give you the remaining time, which ultimately should end up being roughly 20 minutes or so, to continue working on said projects, because there is a check-in, kind of a midpoint assignment due today that, how many have done it? Less than a third of you have done so far. Obviously, it's not due until 2 o'clock today, so, but a third of you doing it so far is actually pretty solid. So anyway, let's get started. As I said, the final exam. Now, I don't remember which day it actually is during the week of final exams, but final exams are in less than 2 weeks. I have you today, I have you Friday, and I have you 2 days next week. And I wanted to kind of spread out this review over the course of multiple class periods, not to kind of overwhelm you with all of the stuff at once, but to kind of subtly remind you, hey, we did this, hey, we did this, let me remind you how to do this, etc., etc., etc. So first, what I'm going to ask you to do, if you are obviously on a school Chromebook, you can break out that calculator. But if you're not on a school Chromebook, obviously, hopefully you should have your own graphing calculator. But break out those graphing calculators. And let me show you something. A reminder as to what we've done in the past. So I'm going to open up 2 things on my computer. There we go. My calculator and my Elmo cam. There we go. Matt, when you ask your question, we turn in one with our partner, or do we all have to turn one in? Are you referring to the project as a whole, or are you referring to like the mid-check thing? Regardless, I'm referring to the partners. So, for example, with the fantasy football project, what some partners did, which I thought was fantastic, was they each turned in the same paper, which is great, which is fantastic. Thank you for that. But some partners did forget, but because this was a partner project, I counted that. So now, obviously, the hope is that you guys are working on this diligently together. There will be an anonymous, not anonymous, I shouldn't say anonymous. There will be some kind of a survey for this project in which you would, I would say privately, tell me what was done on the project by the people who are in your group. Because I would like to know that. But obviously, this is mainly for those students who, and again, you guys know who I'm talking about. This is mainly for those students that have like legitimately just checked out. And I know, and who have just stopped showing up, if you know what I'm saying. And you know who I'm talking about, which I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, trying to reach out. But I just want to make sure everyone do what they've done, that kind of thing. So we'll get there. Now, on my screen, I'm going to show you a problem. Zoom in. Here we go. Now, this problem, there we go. Oh, come on, focus. There it goes. Don't worry about writing this problem down. I'll make sure that the glare is not there when I actually ask you to talk about those numbers. But let's just read at the top what it's asking you to do. The box below shows the number of runs scored by the Barnegat High School baseball team. Then it asks you to find the mean, median, mode, range, IQR, and standard deviation of the data provided. If you remember what we did at the beginning of the school year, I showed you how the calculator can do all of those things for you. But you need to be able to know what to do and where to go in the calculator for that. But the calculator can do all of that for you. You just have to utilize it. So I'm going to move my data over to the side real quick so you can see it a little bit better. Outside of the confines of that glare, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. And I am going to enter that data, and I'm going to ask you to do the same thing because you need to know how to do this. I'm going to enter that data into my calculator. Now, where in my calculator I'm going to enter it, let me get rid of that real quick. Click. Let me actually just reset real quick. Where I'm going to enter it is into a list. If you hit Stat and Edit, as we've been here multiple times throughout this entire school year, this is where I want you to enter in your data. Now, I'm going to switch back in a moment to the screen with the numbers. But first, I need you to enter that data, and I am going to do the same as well. Stat, Edit, will bring you to the list. Let me flip my screen, and I am going to ask that you enter in that data into L1, just L1. And I'm going to do the same. Take a few moments and do that. It does not matter the order in which you enter this in. What matters is that you are accurate with the numbers that you are typing. I'm just going to double check my numbers. Nine, 932, 44, 304, 12, 3, 72, 384. Okay. I'm going to give you a few moments to kind of wrap up typing in those numbers. Of course, I'm leaving them on my screen, but make sure you double check. Now, if your numbers happen to be off from the ones that I get in a few moments, it's simply because maybe you forgot a number or didn't type in a number correctly or whatever. But after you enter that data in, you're going to want to hit the Stat button one more time. And I'm going to flip my screen so you can see it. Click. If you hit the Stat button one more time and tab over to Calc, there is an option under Calc called one-var stats, which is one variable statistics. It's already set up for you for L1, so don't worry about that. But I'm going to go down to Calculate. Boop. And it spits out all of the vital information that I need in regards to this problem. First and foremost, X bar, this one at the top, that is my mean. That is the average number of runs scored, 4.6. The S, or the SX, I should say, the S is my standard deviation, which is my average deviation from the mean. If you go down a little bit farther, if you notice there's a little arrow, if you tap down on that arrow, it gives you more information. It gives you a median and a bunch of quartiles, which we'll get to in a moment. Let me write down what I've got so far. So first, and I'm going to zoom back out on my calculator, or not calculator. I'm going to zoom out on my Elmo cam. Couldn't even think about it. And I'm going to write down the information that they've given me so far, and I'll show you what I got. And then the median is 4. All right, flip. There we go. That's what I got so far. I got my mean, I got my standard deviation, I got my median. Now, they want more than that. The one thing the calculator doesn't really show you is mode. You do have to kind of calculate mode by hand unless you know a fancy trick in the calculator, which I do, which I'll show you. I guess I can show you the fancy trick in the calculator. All right, fine. I'll show you the fancy trick in the calculator. First, before I do mode, let me do range and IQR. Range, I'm going to write it over here, actually. Range is max minus min. We've known that for years. Max minus min, that's range. In the calculator, they give you the max and they give you the min in that set of data. 12 minus 0 is 12. There's my range. IQR, which is the phrase for interquartile range, is simply very similar to range, except it's using the inner quartiles to calculate it. And they give you those two numbers. 7 minus 3 is 4. Flip, flip, flip. All right, so let me double check everything that I got so far, because I think mode is the only thing I got left. Mean, gave it to me. Median, they gave it to me. Range, had to calculate it. IQR, I had to calculate it. Standard deviation, they gave it to me. The only thing I need is mode. Now, of course, mode is what number shows up most often. We've known that for generations. And I could do that by hand. Let me see here. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 4s. I think there are 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, there are 5 3s as well. Ooh. I don't feel like going through all of the data. I mean, you could if you wanted to. Well, let me show you a little trick. There's a little trick. If you hit stat and you click down to this function called sort A, which is called sort ascending, and then you hit second 1 in order to type in L1. Stat, you go to sort A, and then you tell it L1 by hitting second 1. If you do that, it automatically sorts the data that was in that list. And if I go back to stat edit, this is going to be a lot easier to figure out the mode. Let's see. It's only 4 of those. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those. Oh, there were 6 4s. I guess I miscounted when I went through the box. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep. My mode has got to be 4. Mode is equal to 4. Nice. Again, just to kind of show you that one more time. If you hit stat and go down to sort A, and then you tell it L1 by hitting second 1, it'll sort your data ascendingly. I mean, you could do sort D, which is sort descendingly. It'll do the same thing, just opposite. It'll go greatest to least. Boom. Oh, I did L2. My bad. Hold on. L1. There we go. Click. Sort D. And then if I go to stat edit, now it's sorted descendingly, which obviously is the same concept. But then you just have to figure out the mode just by counting out. Oh, there were 6 of them. Oh, okay. Yeah, there were 6 of them. Staring at a screen all day hurts my eyes. Okay, click. Let's look down at this problem. Now, like I said, I am going to give you eventually a study guide to work from, but I just want to kind of go through this. Number 2. Coach Covian graphs hitting data for the varsity team and finds the line of best fit. Oh, this is something that we were just doing recently. The equation for the line of best fit is that equation, y equals 0.41x minus 15.6, where x is the number of at-bats and y is the number of hits. How many hits should he expect from a player who is at bat 160 times? If this problem seems too good to be true, well, it's not. It's not too good to be true. It's exactly what you think it is. X is the number of at-bats, 160 at-bats. Let's just throw the number in there. And then just make sure I calculate it properly. Oh, you can't see what I'm doing because that froze. There you go. That's all I would have to do or worry about. I'm going to go to my calculator. Okay. Click. Get here. Nope. Get here. There we go. Click. 0.41 times 160 at-bats minus 15.6. Boom. There we go. 50 hits. Now, something I want to point out. That 0.41, I want to talk a little bit more about it in the context of the problem. 0.41 represents your slope. Which, by the way, I just circled this. That's the answer to that problem. But 0.41 represents your slope. Slope is change of y over change of x. That's what slope is. In the context of the problem, y is the number of hits, and x is the number of at-bats. Now, what that means is this. 0.41 over 1 represents the change in hits over the change in at-bats. That means for every 1 at-bat, it's expecting about 0.41 hits, which doesn't make too much sense until you multiply the top and bottom by 10. If you multiply the top and bottom by 10, now what this really means is, well, for every 10 at-bats, there is a predicted change of, well, an additional 4.1 hits. That should make sense. It's actually a pretty good average. It's over 400 average. Huh. Interesting. That's what this thing does. Oh, I love it so much. Okay. Scrolling up a little bit more. Number 3. A JV pitcher was brought up to varsity here at Barnegat and allowed 7 runs in 37 innings. What is the pitcher's ERA? And then it says, do you think this pitcher should stay on varsity the rest of the season? Now, I'm going to go a little bit farther. For this final exam, of course, I am going to provide for you a formula sheet. I'm going to provide for you a formula sheet. And there are going to be certain baseball formulas, let's say, that we did at the beginning of the year that you are going to be expected to know how to use. Now, for the sake of argument, just to show you a quick search here, ERA, MLB ERA, let's go here. There we go. The way that earned run average is calculated, you can see right there. I can't see it anymore. See it on my screen right there. ERA is calculated by 9 times earned runs allowed divided by innings pitched. Your job is to know how to use these formulas. Now, obviously, this is one of the more basic formulas. I'm going to show you the WHIP formula in a minute, just to see what else we need in order to calculate WHIP. We can't do WHIP for this problem, of course, but I just wanted to show it to you regardless. Because personally, I think that WHIP is a better indicator of a pitcher's success, but my opinion. 9 times earned runs divided by innings pitched. So I would give it to you looking like that. And you would have to decipher, ER is earned runs and IP is innings pitched. So this would be 9 times, well, he allowed 7 runs. We're going to assume those are earned over the course of 34 innings. All right. Let's see what we get here. Of course, you have to know how to calculate this. 9 times, I'm just going to be safe. Boom. 1.85. Now, in the grand scheme of things, if you go back here, ERA is the average of earned runs given up by a pitcher per 9 innings pitched, which is the traditional length of a game. It basically means that if this JV pitcher were pitching a 9-inning game, oh no, the whole thing disappeared on me. There we go. If this JV pitcher were pitching a 9-inning game, okay, this thing stopped working. That's fun. Close. Reopen. Are you really not going to work on me? Is that what this whole day is coming down to? This thing just not working on me? I need a new Elmo camera. There it goes. Good. If this JV pitcher were pitching a full 9-inning game, then on average, we would expect for the whole game, they would give up about 1.85 runs. That's pretty good, to be honest. That's actually pretty good, all things considered. I mean, if we looked at the all-time list for earned runs, let me put this back to normal here. Let's see, all-time career leaders in ERA. You can see that for a career, actually, this is post-live ball era. No. All-time career leaders in ERA, you have Ed Walsh at 1.85. Career leaders in live ball era post-1920. Oh, you got Rivera, Kershaw, Hoyt Wilhelm, which I'm sure none of you ever heard of. I mean, some of you may have heard of, whatever. Sandy Koufax, my man. But anyway, I digress. Do you think the pitcher should stay in varsity the rest of the season? I mean, yeah, if he maintains this, why not? Whatever. Let me show you WHIP real quick, just to show you what WHIP does in comparison. Oh, wrong one. Let's go here. There we go. WHIP. WHIP. You can see that little corner. I'm going to write it down on the side right here. WHIP is equal to walks plus hits over innings pitched. Flip back over here. The idea of WHIP, which we can't calculate for this pitcher. We can't calculate for this pitcher. But the idea of WHIP is, well, if you give up a walk or if you give up a hit, then you're giving the other team more chances at scoring runs. I mean, technically, you could say the same thing about wild pitches and hit by batter and stuff like that. I mean, you could incorporate those as well. And I'm sure there are some more advanced formulas that do calculate that. But WHIP is, my opinion, a better indicator because sometimes actually, no. If you allow a batter on the bases, like you give up a hit and they bring in a relief pitcher, and then that person ends up scoring, that earned run is attributed to you who put that batter on the base or on by giving up a hit. It's your earned run. But I digress. Now, let's see one more thing. I just want to show you a couple formulas here. First, let's talk about on-base percentage. Click, boom. On-base percentage. According to this final exam, there may be a situation in which I give you a batter's stat box and I ask you to calculate on-base percentage. Well, you would have to go through that person's box or stat box and figure out that information. I may then say, okay, well, I also need you to do slugging. Slugging percentage. Open that up in a new tab right here. And you can see that slugging right there at the top. And then, of course, the better statistic that people have come up with today, which is on base plus slugging, MLB OBS. I clicked on the wrong. Come on, stupid website. It's not going to bring it up for me. Let's do it like this. On base plus slugging. There we go. Better website. Which is just simply put, come on. Just on base plus slugging. But this is just day one of this review. That's what I wanted to do for day one of this review. I just wanted to review with you some of the basics. Number one, I'm going to be throwing some formulas at you and ask you to calculate certain stat lines for players. Number two, you're going to have to know how to utilize that calculator with inputting data and getting summary statistics. And you're going to have to know how to interpret proper problems, like the baseball player problem, 160 at-bats. Well, how many hits is he going to get? Like that kind of thing. This is just day one. We're going to continue reviewing on Friday and next week as well. I'm going to slowly introduce this information. Now, let me change my camera over. What I am going to do is I wanted to review with you the rubric for the project that you guys are working on. There it is. I got to open this thing up. Yeah, let's open up the PDF. I wanted to discuss with you the rubric so that you know what is expected of you. I am going to post this rubric into the Google Classroom sometime later today. I just have to update one or two more basic things. Oh, you got to be kidding me. This network being down thing is killing me. Okay. Got it. Chapoo. Now, I am going to have to adjust. I am going to have to adjust for this situation that we find ourselves in. Now, in terms of this rubric, I have a bunch of criteria, but some of this criteria I cannot do. For example, presentation time. I can't do that this time around because, well, we're quarantined for the next 2 weeks. And my intention was to do presentations pretty much starting this Friday. But because last Friday quarantine happened, I had to adjust a lot of my plans on the fly. So unfortunately, that's not going to be part of the rubric. I do have to update that, as I mentioned. Participation in team presentations. Now, this would normally be if you were doing these presentations in person, which again, not doing, which is why I am going to have to dig a little bit deeper in terms of finding out, okay, who did what kind of situation, or does each person in the group kind of like, did they take an equal share of what is to happen? I mean, obviously 50-50 is ideal. If it's two people, 75-25 is not ideal, but still good. I just don't want it to be like this person did 99% of it and then this person did 1% of it. That's what I don't want. So I'm going to be looking into that. So, but these are the real details that you're going to be researching, of course. I'm going to make this rubric available to you. But I'm going to be looking into the historical background of the sport that you've researched. And of course, all of these little things right here, I'm going to make available to you so you can read those in better detail. Being able to support the findings, of course, has to be logical, concise, clear, that kind of thing. Rules of the game. I'm not going to expect myself to be an expert after reading your presentation or reading your PowerPoint. I'm not expecting to be an expert, but I should be able to have a pretty good idea as to how to play the game after I read whatever you're going to be presenting to me. I should. It shouldn't be like, wow, I have no idea what the heck's going on with that. It should be, oh, wow, I think I could do that, like kind of thing. I don't know. Here we go. The scoring in the game. Again, kind of going along with the idea of rules of the game. Scoring in the game, if there is scoring, of course. Scoring could just be like, well, that's how you win the game, Once this is done, the person wins, and that's the score that happens. The equipment. Perhaps some, visual aids of pictures and whatnot would be fantastic in terms of the equipment. If there are pads or helmets or balls or whatever the heck they end up using. Just trying to give you an idea as to the kinds of things. Again, what I'm really looking for is logical and concise. I don't need a cut and paste job from Wikipedia. That is what I don't need. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. He asked, when are these due again? I'm going to go over the details of that after I talk about this. But I don't need a cut and paste job from Wikipedia. This is what your job is to do, is to research the information and present it in a concise way that I can understand it. Let's see, competitions. What kind of competitions are going on? Are they national competitions? Are they worldwide competitions? Are they recognized competitions by other countries? Or is it just like a niche thing, like it's just in one country in one corner of the world or some junk like that? Popularity and exposure. Like, how many people in the world actually play this sport? Is it like 1,000 people, or is it like 10 million people? I was going to say billion, but there's not that many people on the planet. General discussion and your thoughts, your opinion. And again, I'm going to share this with you so you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then, of course, as I've mentioned, the future of the sport. What is going to happen with the future of this sport? Is it going to go mainstream? Is it going to die a death? Oh, it's up to you. But again, I'm going to share all these details with you. Now, Anthony, to your point, when do these things do? First, a very basic rundown, check-in, midpoints is due today. If you go into the Google Classroom, it's called Unusual Sport Check-in. I've attached just the basic headers. And what I wanted for this check-in assignment was just a sentence or two, brief summary as to what you have found so far. The intention of this check-in is just to make sure that your group has done some of the research into these individual categories. The final product will be due next week. Now, again, my intention was to have them presented in class, but again, we can't do that since we're all going to be quarantining for 2 weeks. So I am going to ask for them to be due by the beginning of the day. Probably I'm going to make a 7 a.m. deadline on Friday of next week. Okay? I'm going to make them due 7 a.m. Friday of next week. I understand that there are going to be other classes that you have to do things for. Obviously, since we're going to be quarantining, a lot of this stuff is going to be like research-based online for your history and English classes and all this other stuff. So I'm trying to provide a wide window of opportunity to get this thing turned in. The midpoint check-in is due today at 2. The final product, which, like I said, I'm going to post something with this on there once I update. I have to update the actual physical presentations to something else. But that will be due Friday of next week by 7 a.m. This is perfect. I've timed this out almost perfectly. The time is approximately 9 o'clock. No, according to my clock, it's 9:03. And I wanted to give you about 20 minutes or so to take this time to continue working, to get that check-in done on Google Classroom if you haven't already done so. Like I said, it's not due till 2 today, that check-in, but 6 of you have turned that in, and 15 of you I'm still waiting on. But of course, some of you might be with partners, of course. You know, I haven't looked at the names at all. I've only looked at the numbers. But I want you to take the next little block of time to continue working through this project. Again, get in contact with your partner. All of that information is on Google Classroom in the Classroom Assignments tab. It's all right there. I'm basically handing out this all to you on a silver platter saying, hey, do this in this exact way. And you're like, okay, I'll get it done. And then we all high five each other at a safe distance. Now, one last thing. I have no idea whether or not we will actually be back in this classroom for final exams. I don't. I actually don't know if our class is even ever going to be in the same room together. And I apologize for that. I don't know why I apologize for that. It's not my fault that there was a global pandemic. But yeah, I don't know if we'll be back. But if we're not back, of course, final exams are still going to happen. They're just going to happen on the computer within a timed situation. But we'll figure that chunk out. If you haven't commented in the chat, if you have not commented in the chat. I need you to do so for attendance purposes because Genesis is down today. And they're expecting me to kind of keep track of that. So thank you guys all for joining us. Take the rest of this time before your third period class and continue with the research. Get in contact with your partner. Just kind of discuss briefly, okay, you're going to do this, I'm going to do this, blah, 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 that kind of thing. Do whatever you got to do. But I'm going to sign off and thank you guys for joining. And we'll be back to do it again on Friday. Yay! Okay. Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye.